Chase Elliott has become the youngest pole sitter in Daytona 500 history, to the delight of his mom and dad and the legion of fans of the 24. Now the business at hand is getting ready to race on Thursday. It's Sprint Cup practice on FS1, presented by Chevrolet. Defending Daytona champ Joey Logano is first in the practice line. Dale Jr. did a sit down with Larry Mack. You'll see later today. Brad Keselowski, Chase, and those who will be chasing him in the Can-Am duel at Daytona tomorrow night here on FS1. Duel number 1 sets the inside lane to come down to green in the Daytona 500. Duel 2 sets the outside. The highest finishing non-chartered or open team in each duel will make the 500. Ryan Blaney and Matt DiBenedetto already locked in on qualifying time, as are the 36 drivers whose cars are chartered into this and every Sprint Cup race this season. The temperature hit in the low 70s earlier today. Right now 66. Winds out of the east-northeast at about 12, and the track temp not quite 90 degrees.
Okay, track's home for practice. We're all the rookies, because they usually, as soon as the track home for practice, I got to get out there, I got to go.
Casey Mears first out onto the track. Let's go downstairs to Jamie Little.
Well, Mike, it's the first of 2 practices for tomorrow night's dual races. And like always at Daytona, there's different approaches. The Joe Gibbs Racing teammates, Kevin Harvick, Martin Truex Jr., opting to sit this practice session out. But, Daryl, you asked about the youngsters. 20-year-old Chase Elliott, who's the pole sitter. I talked to his team. They want to get out as quickly as possible, run as many laps as possible, and they would even like to do some drafting. But only with veteran drivers who will have his best interest at heart, who he can run with and learn from. He's getting ready to go out right now. Let's go over to Matt Yoakum.
And Jamie, one of the main reasons why JGR is sitting out this practice session is their teammate, Matt Kenseth, who scored the outside front row for the Daytona 500. Their team spent so much time in post-qualifying teardown, like the other teams as well, that they didn't get a chance to swap the car over and get it ready for today's practice session. So they spent much of today, even though they were allowed to come in an hour earlier, much of today just getting this car ready. Now they're going to go out in the second session with their JGR teammates, do some drafting just in-house, and then park it. They're pretty pleased about their rocket.
So a leisurely pace there for the JGR team. Now, Brian Vickers in Tony Stewart's number 14 with post-qualifying issues, measurement of the track bar after that car settled down in the air and came back in for qualifying. Kevin Harvick as well. They will each start their Can-Am duel from the back due to that violation.
That's how you know when you're ready to go. You just clean in the end, vacuum out the inside a little bit, dust it off. You're ready to go.
We had that shot of Brian Vickers rolling off there. Big hit for him on Saturday night in the Sprint Unlimited. Good to see him doing okay. I spoke to him and he said, yeah, it was a big hit. I think, you go driver's side into these walls, even with the safer barriers, it's going to be a heck of a lift.
Well, they said Chase wanted to go out with people that would kind of watch out for him, take care of him. I can think of 7 or 8 guys that I'd want to go out with that he's affiliated with. Teammates, Stewart Haas Group, those are some good guys. You see right here what happened to Brian's Saturday night in the Unlimited. He lost the tire going down toward turn 1, and it was on from there.
Yeah, not a whole lot he could do. He's just holding on tight. When you have a tire that's going down like that, there's not much you can do other than slow the car down a little bit and go, hold on tight.
How much of a factor, not in the crash itself, but in the effect on you, that Brian Vickers had not been in a race car in nearly a year?
There's no doubt when you get back into the car and it's been a long time, and let's be honest, everybody's a little rusty out there, but Brian Vickers, it's been quite a while since he's been in the car, especially in these conditions. You want it to go smooth. You want it to go well. You want to make good decisions, put yourself in good positions, and build on, get some momentum building for the Daytona 500 Speed Weeks.
Yeah, you run 190, 200 miles an hour, and a tire starts to go down. As you're in the middle of a pack, you really don't have a lot of options.
No, I'm sorry. As we watch Dale Jr. looking on at this practice, what I meant was the ability to take a hit like that and shake it off and walk away without having been in the car for a long time.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, these drivers do a lot to be very physically fit, but until you're in the car, you're really not car or race car fit, and there is a time frame that it takes. And a lot of these guys that were in the cars all last year, they went through the off season, they really are still in pretty good fitness as far as the race shape is what I like to call it. Now Brian, he's very physically fit, he works out a lot, so I don't think there's any of that, but sitting in that seat, taking some of those loads and taking that hit had to be pretty foreign to his body for that to happen like that.
Yeah, Mike, I've worked out, through the years, worked out a lot, but when you get in a race car, you use muscles that you don't realize you use until you get all that stress and strain. Then every muscle in your body is tight and tense.
Especially your neck. There's not a lot you can do to train your neck other than be out there in the race car. Got a pretty nice group that's built up here. I'm a little bit surprised. I was really expecting to see some single car runs or some small groups. I think this is a sign of not only a great rookie class, but some teams out there that really want to get some experience under their belt, like our pole sitter Chase Elliott, who's in the middle of this. I'm not so sure if he's really comfortable being at the back of this huge pack right now this early in practice.
Yeah, this is 18 cars in one practice group here.
Yeah, Jeff, there's so much pressure on Chase. You think he's starting on the pole if he doesn't wreck that car. And so he's not only got the pressure of being on the pole, he's the youngest pole sitter down here, a rookie, but now he's got to think about, I can't wreck this car, I can't wreck this car. And what happens when you say, I can't wreck this car?
You wreck your car.
Well, there are the two rookies. Look at Ryan Blaney, right stuck in the middle.
Yeah, here's what I see. This is really important for all these drivers, but especially the rookies, to get themselves in position to learn what they need to learn to go race strong in the duels tomorrow. Get ready for that Daytona 500 on Sunday, and you're going to be in this position. You're going to be 3 wide in the middle, so you better get used to what it's going to be like. You need to know how your car is driving, what kind of speed that the car has. So it's important to get into these positions. The downside is when you're in these positions, it's really easy for something to go wrong.
Yeah, you don't want to start the race in a crappy car. You don't want to say, I went out there and I didn't want to practice, I didn't want to take a chance, then you can't drive the car and you get in trouble because of that. So it's a two-edged sword. You got to do it, but man, is it edgy.
All clear, no pressure. Give about 3 car lengths, just so you know. Now 4, now 5. All clear.
Now we have 2 orderly lanes coming to the stripe instead of that 3 wide. And somewhere in the midst of all that, down on the inside toward the front of the line, is Brad Keselowski in the white deuce. Jamie?
Well, Mike, one of the stories during Speed Weeks is these Penske cars and the Ford noses. They brought something new this year, and they're very excited about it. I went and talked to Paul Wolf, his crew chief, about Brad's car in the Sprint Unlimited, and he said Brad said that was the best car he's ever had at a restrictor plate race. He was very happy with it, but the downside, we all saw it. He got trash on the grill, and it wouldn't come off even when he sucked up behind somebody. That is still a concern, and they're looking at trying some different size mesh on that grill moving forward.
Now we say grill, but that's a misnomer because the grill on these cars, unlike your car, is pretty much a decal or a sticker. Right on the face of the bumper is an opening to get air into the radiator, the size of which is mandated by NASCAR, and that opening got plugged up on Keselowski's car in the Unlimited, and some big pieces of plastic were blowing around there Saturday night.
All these teams really play around a lot with the grill screen and the way it's shaped and the way it allows air to flow into it. I think Larry Mack might actually be able to elaborate a little bit more on some of the detail in that grill screen, because it did look to me, Larry Mack, like that trash was really stuck in there like I've never seen before.
Yeah, NASCAR mandates the size, Jeff, and that's 23 inches wide by 1 3/4 tall. Now you can tape it up more than that, obviously helps the air of the race car, but it can't be bigger than that. No question, they will play with pretty much how dense the wire is, maybe real fine wire, or they'll maybe open it up a little bit, and then sometimes they'll actually put a little concave in it just to pretty much keep trash from getting in there and capturing up in that if it's pretty much sunk in right there. So they'll play with the shape of that screen wire.
And I think that's what happened to Brad. He had a bit of that concave screen. It sucked that plastic, and it stayed right there. Might have had a little contact out there early on in this practice session. Close, closer. Oh, boy. Life in the fast lane for NASCAR Sprint Cup drivers getting ready for tomorrow night's Can-Am Duel at Daytona. Here are the fastest speeds. Michael McDowell catching up to that pack at 200 miles per hour. Trevor Bayne, Ricky Stenhouse, a couple of Fords up there. Larry?
Yeah, we always talk about the draft being the equalizer, and to me that's what makes the Gatorade Duel races so neat, and then especially the Daytona 500, because I look at Michael McDowell. He qualified 25th in single car runs on Sunday. Now he's quickest. But then I look back at drivers like Cole Witt. He's 11th right now in that 98 car. If you go back to qualifying, Cole qualified 37th out of 44 cars. The draft is the equalizer. That's why we say if you're in it, you can win it.
Yeah, it's just amazing how it seems like when we go to Daytona and Talladega, the little teams have the most success that they do anywhere else. They hang around in the right spots. They maybe not fast enough to get up there and lead a little bit, but they're always in the right place at the right time to be able to take advantage of anything that happens, and they can weave their way through it, and they come home with great finishes.
No, you're absolutely right, DW.
Now, we talked about Martin Truex, Brian Vickers, and Kevin Harvick having to drop to the back of their dual lineup because their times were disallowed. Here's another car going to the back tomorrow night. Jamie?
Well, I just poked my head in to talk to NASCAR to see if there have been any issues. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr., they had a mechanical issue with his gearing, so they've changed the gear. He will start in the back of his duel tomorrow night. The 16 is also a concern. Greg Biffle, they're waiting to get word if they're going to need to change his gear as well.
Thanks, Jamie. There's the Biff. We
looks like he's about ready to have some Nashville hot chicken.
Looks like quite a few cars have finally maybe had enough being in that big group. Maybe they learned what they needed to learn. Plus, there's a couple rookies that started getting up towards the front and definitely taking, a lot of different action, trying to side draft and learn a few things. And I'm just wondering if some of those drivers said, you know what, I think I learned what I needed to learn.
You know, we had a meeting with NASCAR, and they almost treat this like 2 race weekends. From the time we get here until after the Gatorade Duels, that's like 1 race weekend. You have to stay with the same engine, transmission, and gear. Now, after the dual races, as long as it's in there before final practice on Saturday, they will let you change the engine and the transmission and the gear. Obviously, they're having to change the gear before the duels. That's why they will have to go to the rear field. Only for the duel, though, not the Daytona 500.
Thanks, Larry. Michael Annett drafting along with Matt DiBenedetto, who's already locked himself into the 500. Michael McDowell, top of the speed chart.
Katie Nolan here with your Daytona 500 pit stop on Fox. Which lap is your favorite lap?
First lap.
The last one.
The lap where I get the checkered flag.
The last. The last one.
The last one. But what if you're losing?
Austin Dillon, former pole sitter for the 500, prepares to climb back aboard for another run. Well, the more we're here, the less we know. We came up to the booth saying, a couple of the guys in the back will go out. You know, the open cars will run together. A few guys will make single car runs. There aren't going to be any big packs. There's not going to be any big draft. And what happens? First thing, Joey Logano leads everybody out into a big 18-car draft. And who's smack in the middle of it? Our pole sitter, Chase Elliott.
Well, I think we knew that being a rookie, being new to Daytona in the Cup car, that he wanted to get out there and mix it up. They really want to be able to put that car in a position like they're going to be more than likely in the duel, but certainly on Sunday in the 500 to just get a really good feel, get him some laps. Obviously, a very fast race car, and I'm really happy that they did that because I think they need to do that. They can't be gun shy at this point. They need to get out there and do everything you need to do to try to win this race and not look at it as we're rookies.
Darrell, you always get some deep frown lines when you see a big knot of cars like that in practice.
Yeah, well, it's risk reward. You got to do it. Now we say it every year we come down here. You've got to get out there and see what your car feels like in the traffic. But I think 2 things are going on. 2 drivers I think are really probably Chase Elliott and Brian Vickers, they're probably telling Chase, well, this is the way Jeff liked it. And they're probably telling Vickers, well, this is the way Tony liked it. And there's probably some other crew chiefs who are saying, this is the way we ran it last year. So you kind of got to filter through all that. And is this what this driver needs for the conditions this year?
Comfort or speed? Which is more important?
Oh, you know, I mean, speed is certainly important. But to me, Daytona is such a narrow racetrack. This race is going to be run during the daytime on Sunday for the 500. And I think you're going to want your car to handle pretty well in the middle of a pack, because in those closing 10 laps of the Daytona 500, they're going to be pushing, shoving. It's going to get wild. You better have a pretty good driving car.
And then every tribe has one contrary. Mr. Lonely.
Hello, Lonely. I'm Mr. Lonely. No, but you know, you don't want your car jumping around. Think about a shortstop. Ball comes at him, it's on the ground, he's going to reach down and grab it, and it takes a bad hop. That's what these cars do. You got everything under control, you're feeling pretty good, and it takes a bad hop. And it's going to hit something.
Well, Saturday night was not Mr. Lonely for Jimmie Johnson. It was right in the middle of it. Getting bounced around, turned aside, slide through the grass, and look at that splitter dig in like a snow-breaking chisel. Wow.
Now,
what is that car apart?
What do you think would have happened if it had been paved?
He would have straightened it out. I've seen Jimmie Johnson spin out and never hit anything, so I wouldn't have been surprised. And I know that NASCAR and everybody here at Daytona is looking at possibly doing that. That part of the racetrack is incorporated in the 24 hours of Daytona, and so it is a chicane back there for those sports cars. So I don't know if they can do that, but certainly would have saved the splitter on that 48 car.
That's what they make paint for.
Well, this was never a problem until we developed cars with those splitters that are right down on the pavement, and otherwise, boy, they just work like a scraper as they get into an uneven surface like that. We listened in on Jimmie Johnson and team.
I said, do you think he's bored out there? Yeah, I know. I laughed. He probably wouldn't be so bored if I was riding with him out there. That'd be very entertaining.
So, spotter Earl Barbin wants to go for a ride.
Big Earl. Put him over on the right side, and we'll hear some noise then.
Earl knows how to lighten up the moment. I mean, I think they realize that this is not going to be really exciting, but I love that Chad Knaus is going to stick to his plan. He's not going to go away from it.
Keep on going, bud.
Practice for tomorrow's Can-Am Duel at Daytona continues.
Hello Celebration! Camping World, the nation's #1 retailer of RVs and RV accessories, is celebrating 50 years. We've been here for your first adventure. We've helped make lasting family memories, and we'll be here for all your future expeditions. With thousands of parts and accessories available, service nationwide, and RVs as low as $109 a month, Camping World has it all. We want you to be part of our family for the next 50 years. Visit your local Camping World Supercenter or shop campingworld.com today.
This is a really important part of this race. There's a very good chance you're going to be making green flag stops. You want to get there with as much speed as possible. You can see that car really wiggling around there. I can't tell if that's a little bit too much rear brake or if he was downshifting. I think DW, you thought maybe he was downshifting. I think he might be right. I think he did it a little too early. The back end hopped around on him, but he definitely did a nice job carrying a lot of speed there.
Here's what Chase said.
I thought you did a pretty good job coming to the line, but I did not see you slide him. NASCAR, thanks for getting used to with this dash deal. It's too hard to hold the light. It's just way too jumpy right there with whatever setting that is. There's left side mirror. I can't see where guys are very well either.
So, well, interesting thing on the mirror. I wouldn't be surprised if they have the left side mirror that I liked in the car. And I'll apologize to Chase right now. He probably wants something a little bit different. I always like the flat mirror on that left side, but it doesn't give you a lot of. Oh, actually, no, they went with the concave one. They went away from the one that I really liked. But no, I think that right there, him talking about the dash, the digital dash. All these teams who keep talking about how they're tuned for pit road speed. And I've heard from a lot of different drivers a whole mix of how they're tuning to that. I've heard some guys say, hey, I was within a half a mile per hour. on pit road, all the way down pit road, and we're very happy with it. I've heard others say, like Chase just did, very difficult to get down to pit road speed and hold that speed.
Mike, I think peripheral vision, you know, it's restricted somewhat with the Hans device, the way the seats are made. Then you throw in some extra mirrors. What he's worried about is a car dive bombing him as he comes on the pit road, comes in a little hotter, and all of a sudden he doesn't know he's there. So he's thinking like, he thinks like a veteran. I mean, you know, those are things that a rookie may never think of, but this kid's always kind of thinking, kind of planning ahead.
That was Greg Biffle's car. We saw the glass panel, the new digital dash that's in use in the Sprint Cup Series, and it's mandatory. It's not an option for these teams.
You know, here in this group that, yeah, we're back to the digital dash. What I love so much is that lap time up there. That's something that the drivers have never had in race or practice conditions, and that is such a huge tool. Maybe it's not a big tool here at Daytona, but when we leave here and we go to Atlanta and we go to Las Vegas and California and Phoenix, they are going to live by that number every single lap.
Yeah, and it helps you know what you did on that lap. Maybe you ran a different line or something, you know, so it always helps you to document that.
Well, the last couple days, there's been a lot of gum flap about roof flaps. This is David Reagan's, taped just a couple of minutes ago in this session.
The escape velocity for spacecraft leaving Earth's atmosphere is 25,053 miles per hour.
Oh my goodness!
But there's almost no escape from the jump shot of Trayvon Blewett. It's a Big East doubleheader tonight at 7 Eastern on FS1, sponsored by the Jeep Renegade.
Most laps run in this practice session. Danica Patrick, Regan Smith, who is new to the number 7 this year, Casey Mears, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski.
Did you go over this morning and do yoga with Danica?
I was waiting for you to show up to pick me up.
Yeah.
He sent you for a long wait.
I was having a cup of coffee right along then.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, 2 drivers and teams here in this draft that I think are going to be moving up that laps board, and that's Chris Buescher and Brian Scott, 2 rookies. We haven't talked a lot about them. Obviously, a lot of talk about Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney, but these 2 guys, very talented race car drivers with a lot on the line here in Daytona and putting in a lot of laps here to really get an idea of what they need for this race tomorrow.
I think a lot of these guys here are looking for speed. They just don't have the speed, and they know they need it, and I think that's what they're working on.
And I see that 44 car, and I squint, and I see newly minted Hall of Famer Terry Labonte in the Piedmont Airlines car for Billy Higgs.
So true. It's hard to ever get away from some of those images.
Oh, yeah.
So I saw Landon Castle there was leading that draft there, and you saw him put his hand out the window. And basically, when you've led a lot of laps or you're out front, you now think to yourself, okay, I want to get back and get behind some cars and see what the car does. So he kind of waved them on by, moved to the top. Obviously, not all of them wanted to go on by him, and let some cars go, and then he's going to fall back in line, see what his car does in a different type of draft rather than being out front.
I think that's Brian Vickers in the 14 up there, and I think that he's a guy that needs to run a lot of laps to get comfortable.
Absolutely. I think, as we documented earlier, he would have liked to have had a much more solid race on Saturday night in the Unlimited. Had he had a solid race, I think he'd be sitting here with a lot of confidence, feeling good about it. And it wasn't his fault, the tire cut down, but a lot of laps, get a lot of experience, and we know this is a car team that can go battle for a win for the Daytona 500.
Now there's something we hadn't seen all week. 8,700 RPM coming through the trial down to turn 1. Here's Jamie Little with today's Geico Pit Report.
Well, Carl Edwards just came walking through the garage. He said, I'm going to go out there, get in my car. And your crew chief said, nah, not so fast. So what's your plan now?
I'm just going to stand by the car. Pretty much, that's it. So we planned on going out at 5:30, but I guess we decided not to. I think we're going to go out next practice. It's hard, you have this plan like, hey, we're not going to wreck the car. We got this, guys are out there running. You want to go out there and go. So I'll just hang out here in case they change their mind and want to let me get in the car. But I think mostly I'll just be standing here.
It's so hard. Some drivers, they want to get out there and they're torn, and they don't want to mess up their car either, Mike.
I always think about what Larry told me Earnhardt used to say. And Larry, he was kind of finicky anyway. He wanted to get that car out there on the track, get it in traffic, see how it's going to run. And Larry would go to Dale and say, Dale, think about to go out there and run in traffic, see how the car's going to do? Nope, don't plan on being in no traffic.
And he wasn't very often.
So here's the pit sign for Chase Elliott.
What I like about this, you're looking at a team, very experienced team with the 24 car with a rookie driver, but Alan Gustafson and this team are paying attention to details. They are trying to cross their T's and dot their I's. They're on the pole for the Daytona 500. They want to make sure they get through this race tomorrow by having a great experience in that race. That's why they're out there drafting a lot, getting them used to being in the draft with Chase. But they're also really practicing getting on pit road, getting into the pit box. There's so many aspects that go into this race to not just be in it, but be a real factor when it's all over.
It's not like he's never been here before. I mean, he ran the Xfinity races here, and so he knows kind of what he's getting into, but he's being led by one of the best in the garage area, too. Just like you said, Alan Gustafson, he's one of those guys, whether you're driving the car as a veteran as you were, or whether it's that rookie Chase Elliott, he's got things on his agenda that he wants to be sure taken care of as well.
Well, they brought that pit sign all the way down to pit stall number 3, I believe, which is the first pit stall to be used. That's the one the pole sitter usually chooses. But since that is right next to where the line is for cars waiting to get on the track, it'll be a little while before they can practice pit entry and exit from the pit stall.
And I saw that earlier when he rolled down there. He had to go around some cars, so he couldn't actually carry his pit road speed all the way to the mark he really wanted to and then shoot in where he could slide into the box. That's what you really want to do. You want to simulate as best as possible. I love this.
A fan gets a photo. Let's watch Brian Vickers come off turn number. Beautiful day in Daytona. Just a few puffy clouds where Michael McDowell's Chevrolet is the fastest. 3 Fords right behind him. Then Casey Mears in another Chevy. Quickest Toyota is Cole Witt in the 98, who is 12th. Here's Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Looks like they're on the same plan as the 48, just making single car runs. You're probably going through a lot of different adjustments as far as heights, setup things that they can see. Did that contribute to a little more speed? Did it affect the handling? They're not going to really learn much on handling by themselves, but they certainly will see the clock and what kind of speed they have.
I see the RPM, Jeff, and that makes me think they've gone to a little bit lower gear. A bunch of these teams have, because I'm seeing a whole much more RPM than what we were seeing in practice on Friday. I don't think we ever saw 84, 8,500. I think 82, 83, maybe 84.
It's a good point, because once they pull the tape off, they might know that that's going to slow the cars down a little bit, and they might want a little more gear.
Earnhardt completes this lap as we go down to the garage and Matt Yoakum.
Mike, a lot for Greg Biffle and the 16 bunch to work on. So you've got a new spotter this year and Freddie Kraft, but also working on the mirror and then also working about your car, different sections of the draft.
Yeah, we were working on, being able to run the top, the bottom, the middle. And the guys wanted to try a few different things, lower the car down a little bit to see if it was going to hit the racetrack. But, not quite going as fast as we're going to go in a 30-car draft or 25-car draft in the 150s. So really, really happy with the speed of this car. This car's driving really, really nice. Everybody's done a great job on the KFC car. Just can't wait for tomorrow night.
Good luck. He starts 11th in his duel. Mike?
If he wins it, we'll call him the Colonel. Why not? Here is Clint Boyer climbing out of his Chevrolet.
Steve Addington is crew chief.
Larry?
Now, guys, he's driving for H. Scott Motorsports. He spent 6 years driving for Richard Childress Racing, 3 years over at Michael Waltrip Racing, but this is the first time that Clint has raced a carbon fiber seat. I talked to Steve Addington, his crew chief. He said they spent a lot of time on Friday with the Unlimited car, getting him used to it. I talked to Clint yesterday, Jeff, and he said he's really having a tough time adapting to this carbon fiber seat versus an aluminum seat.
Yeah, you can see a crew member getting in there. I don't know if that has to do with the seat, but yeah, there's definitely a big difference between the carbon fiber seat and an aluminum seat. Obviously, those materials completely different. But what I've seen happen, and I remember when I went to the carbon fiber seat, so first you have to just get the positioning right. You pour a mold, but you're doing it in a fixture, in a shop. You're not really doing it at the track while you're testing. And so as we see Chase Elliott doing another run to pit road here, that one looked a little smoother, I think.
Well, you notice the flames coming out the tailpipe. I mean, he's downshifting that baby getting on pit road. Womp, womp, womp. I mean, that's what he's trying to do, I think.
And now it looks like he's got a clear run into and out of his pit.
All the way down here where his pit, that's where he will
And so what
pit tomorrow.
Yeah, what you're trying to do is see what kind of grip level the tires have, how deep you can drive in there. Now, what you have to be real careful in this situation in race conditions, those tires have a lot more heat in them and a lot less grip. If you try to drive into the same spot and carry too much speed in there, you're going to slide right through your pit, which we see a lot here in Daytona. I want to step back real quick on the carbon fiber seat. The biggest adjustment that I had, it's very rigid. It's a very safe seat. It's a great, from a safety feature, it's fantastic the way it holds the belts and the head supports and everything. It's very rigid. You feel all of the vibrations in that car coming through your body more than you ever did before. When you go into a hit, it's a great thing to have, but getting used to the positioning of it and the rigidness of it is definitely a big adjustment for drivers.
It seems more confining to me. It just seems like it fits you tighter. I notice how big the headrests are. I know that it wraps around your rib cage a little bit different than maybe some of the other seats do. I just think it would be a totally different feel than what he was accustomed to.
But DW, as you know, when you adapt over to something, there's a change, and you don't always like the change, but after you get in it, you love it. And that's how I was. I absolutely loved it, and I know that Clint eventually will. And we saw where there used to be an advantage with the aluminum seats, they were lighter. Because you would think carbon fiber is lighter, but there was a weight requirement for carbon fiber seats. So a lot of teams decided to stick with the aluminum seats, but they started changing those weight requirements on the aluminum seats as well. Now you're seeing pretty much everybody get back onto, or all the teams go to the carbon fiber seat.
I guess you wouldn't do that like a helmet, would you? Remember the other day when we saw him with the ball peen helmet in there, adjusting the inner shell of the helmet?
Let's him get in there and shave down the padding.
Chase getting into and out of his pit.
Yeah, so he's basically rolling right along here at pit road speed. And it looked to me like he carried a little bit more speed this time. I think the time before that was a little bit conservative. Now, if we could listen into radio, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody's giving him maybe a 5 or a 10 count, and that he's getting between his visual and what they're telling him in his ear. Sometimes it's the crew chief, sometimes it's the spotter of counting him into that pit stop.
All right, now here comes
nothing coming out the back. You good?
Brad Keselowski.
Hello.
Coming in hot.
Hello. Foamer runways, I'm coming in.
Now, a lot of that is being on the splitter. Sometimes you get on the splitter and starts taking weight off those tires, or a little bit too much front brake, and you start locking up tires. That's exactly what you want to try out in practice, so you don't do that in the race.
And the important thing here to remember is pit road speed is measured yellow line to yellow line.
The pit road lines are borderline. I mean, that's probably manageable. I would like to see that next step just to know what it does. And for some reason, I noticed a little bit of a delay.
A little latency built into that system, perhaps? Here are your top 10 in practice number 1 of 2. There'll be a short intermission on track, but we will stay right here, including Larry McReynolds' sit down with Dale Earnhardt Jr. Jamie?
And we spent quite a bit of time talking about Clint Bowyer. He's gone through a lot of changes this year, new crew chief, new team, and new seat. So from your perspective, I mean, you've run the aluminum seat your entire career. How is this one different for you?
I feel like I'm driving Jeff Gordon's car, like in his seat. I mean, you're like crammed in there in a little cocoon. I guess they're safer, so I'm sticking with it.
Well, you're smiling a little bit more today than you were in practice last weekend. Are you guys figuring it out? Or are you finding a little bit more speed that you felt you were lacking?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was quite a ways off on the speed charts, but everybody knows you get out there in racing and how the thing pulls up to the car in front of you, side drafting, how people can push you, that's a big thing. You know, all those characteristics are things that you need to get out here and practice and figure out if that speed chart's going to lie to you or not, or be a predicament of what's to come in the race. I felt like I could manipulate some things things and stall runs and you know, gain access from people pushing and things. A 24 car got up there and was pushing me, and I felt like I could make some gains and some headway where I needed to go. So, man, it's fun to race like that. It really is. It's a little hectic when everybody else gets out there and all hell breaks loose, but it is fun to get out there and manipulate that air and, you know, side drop off somebody and stall them out. Hopefully you're watching the mirror that they catch you at the same time, and away you go, you know, and drive off from that guy. It is, there's a lot that goes into to being a good plate racer, and practice makes perfect.
You're not animated at all. Thanks a lot, Clint. Mike.
Clint Boyer. Mike McDowell fastest in round number 1 of practice today.
Ah, fresh Florida pan-roasted vegetable medley served with sirloin steak. The sizzling sound of fresh Florida vegetables mingling together. Sauté zucchini, squash, bell peppers, and tomatoes in golden olive oil. Garnish with fresh parsley and serve with juicy sirloin steak. That's how easily pan-roasted Florida vegetables complete a delicious meal. Visit freshfromflorida.com for more great recipes. And remember, delicious is always served fresh from Florida.
Every driver dreams of winning the Daytona 500, but first, they have to get into the race and find a starting spot. That's what we'll do tomorrow night when the green flag waves on the Can-Am Duel. Tomorrow at 7 Eastern, only on FS1, streaming live on Fox Sports Go. Daytona 500 pole sitter Chase Elliott will start this from the pole next to his teammate Dale Earnhardt Jr. Then a couple of fast Fords. And on down the list, the results of qualifying, all 36 charter teams were split odd, even, odd, even. Then all the open teams were split by speed, odd, even, and then everybody in the first basket, those speeds were lined up. Their qualifying rank was lined up, and that is how they will start the race with Kevin Harvick there going to the back for the issue on qualifying day. So here's Duel 2, Matt Kenseth, outside pole for the 500. He will lead this field to green next to his teammate Kyle Busch.
I tell you, that first race looks got a lot of fast cars in it. Of course, there's all these first, you know, 7 or 8 rows here are all fast cars, but that first one seemed to be loaded up with some good stuff.
Don't you just love that they race for their position for the Daytona 500? It's the only race that we do that all year long, and I absolutely love it. It's going to be a really exciting race.
I love heat races.
Yeah.
All right, Matt Yoakum.
And Mike, throughout NASCAR's history, some of the greatest inventions have taken place in someone's garage, drawing it out on the concrete floor. For Jimmy McMurray, you were doing some off-season helmet AC design.
Well,
in your garage.
We have like that has evolved over the years. We used to have the ports on the side of the helmet, and that was always in the way of your seat. So then they went to like a top mount, and over the off-season, we just had worked on utilizing the holes that are already in the helmet instead of having to drill more holes in the helmet. So what used to happen is when you would cram the air in from the top, we only had one hole in the bottom, and the microphone would be really distorted from the amount of wind noise or air coming in. So the way this kind of uses more more of the natural holes that are in the helmet, it seemed to work really well. That's what I was telling you before practice. I haven't got to use this yet because good old helmet painter was a little late getting it to me, but so I just got this today, and so we were testing it out there. It worked well.
That seems to be a trend with helmet painters. They always arrive just a little bit tacky.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said, I think the bag is going to be sticking to this, but it's here, and so we'll be able to use it, so I'm really proud of him.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mike.
Remember, he's a guy that had the shock dyno in his living room.
Well, that's true. Getting ready for practice number 2.
There's people who care where I'm going, and good friends who welcome me home. So get a full tank of freedom, drive the American road. And with a full tank of freedom, find your own highway. We'll take you wherever you go. Take you wherever you go.
36 of the 44 drivers entered in the Daytona 500 were on track in practice number 1. Michael McDowell's Chevy drafted up to the pack. He is fastest. You won't see many Toyotas on this list. Cole Witt, Robert Richardson Jr., the fastest of those, because the Gibbs cars and Furniture Row elected to sit out this first practice. Now, we've talked a lot about roof flaps, and we've received a lot of tweets of folks about roof flaps after Martin Truex Jr. was not allowed to make a qualifying run on Sunday. His car was pushed back to the NASCAR inspection station, where the team and NASCAR looked over the car. And on Twitter, here is Chase Elliott's car leaving pit road with the roof flaps flush. But we received several of these pictures on Twitter showing the car during and afterwards with the flap up slightly at the back. And yet when the car came back and stopped, as you see on the left, the roof flap is right down there. However, we did notice this, what appears it could be a foreign object at the edge of the roof flap on the Truex car as it sat on pit road. That's how we looked at it with our 4K resolution super high def video cameras.
That would be my excuse. That thing got in there somehow. I don't know where that came from.
Larry?
Now, why would someone want to have that roof flap up? Well, the way the aerodynamics, whenever you have a nice flat surface, the air stays attached to it, and it's going to go down the back window, and it's going to stay attached even down the deck lid, and it hits that rear spoiler. The biggest culprit when you're talking about drag is that rear spoiler. When the air stacks up on that rear spoiler, it hurts the straightaway speed. But if we can go back to the roof flap, if you'll show me the roof flap, if you raise that roof flap up just a little bit, what that does, it strips the air off the roof. And what that's going to do, it's going to go and not hit the spoiler as much. So it reduces the drag of the race car.
But Larry, what's the difference between the back edge of that flap sitting proud or sticking up on the qualifying line versus that flap buffeting a bit at speed?
Yeah, that one's got me a little bit puzzled, because we see that when the cars are in the draft, because you have a lot of turbulent air out there. But normally when we're out there single car run, we see the same thing with the cow flaps going up and down when the car's in a draft. But normally when a car's out there by itself, you're in no turbulent air. That's the first time that I've ever seen that happen with a roof flap like what we saw in the 24 car.
Okay. So Martin Truex will start at the back of his Can-Am dual race. And here, the Toyota drivers getting ready to practice. Larry Mack sits down with Dale Earnhardt Jr. next. Here at Daytona, the teams are getting ready for the second round of practice today for tomorrow night's Can-Am duel. Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s car being readied. Larry Mack caught up with Dale Jr. at the NASCAR hangar during a Goodyear tire event to talk about his involvement with the company and his mindset this year.
Dale, I know you've got a busy schedule, Daytona Speed Weeks, but I appreciate you coming out and hanging out with us a little bit. What made you want to get involved with the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company?
Basically, they've been such a consistent partner with NASCAR for so many decades. As a driver, you know, you want to pair with people that are devoted to the sport, dedicated to the sport, know they're going to be around for a long time. They've put a lot into it. As you get older, you learn how this process works. Just being a part of the sport and supporting the sport as a sponsor, but having to develop the tire that we actually use every day on the racetrack.
Dale, I saw this last year, but I'm already seeing it in 2016. When I look at Dale Earnhardt Jr., and I've known you for years, you just look comfortable. You look confident. And am I misreading you, or do you really feel comfortable and confident across the board right now?
I think every year I get a little more comfortable and a little more satisfied, you know, really. The confidence is better because of how we've, you know, performed over the last couple of years, so that's improved the confidence for sure. When you go out there and you win some races, you get real excited about what's next. We've had fast cars every week, so that's where the confidence comes from. But I think as you get older, you get less worried, less concerned about what's around the corner, and you start to relax a little bit and just take things as they come and not get so worked up about things. I just have fun, have a lot more fun.
Yeah.
And you know, I put performance first above everything else in my life, and that drives everything. Yeah. So when things aren't working well at the track, it's hard to not show it, you know, and not let it affect everything else you're doing, and being, you know, always be in the back of your mind. But we're running well, doing well, so things have been great.
You know, I follow you on Twitter, and I get a feeling you never really jumped on the Carolina Panther bandwagon, but you're Redskins. I love what I read just this morning, actually. You said, you know, when I don't win,
my fans have a bad week. When my Redskins don't win, I have a bad week.
Yeah.
You really are into the Redskins, right?
Yeah, I am. I supported the Panthers through their run to the Super Bowl because what's good for the Panthers is good for the city of Charlotte. But I was a Redskins fan since 1981, and I just had so much invested in them. When the Charlotte team came around, I just couldn't unplug and plug back into something new.
I know you got a lot to do. You got a fast race car, and good luck on winning this third Daytona 500.
Yes, sir.
Love to call it on our Fox broadcast.
I'd love to win.
Thanks, Larry. Boy, that's a happy man right there. You know, when you see athletes develop over a career, both personally and professionally, there are moments that seem to stand out, and this last year certainly has for Dale Earnhardt Jr. When your daughter was born, I remember just a whole transformation in DW from the driven guy that had to be it and had to do it every single day to a proud father. And, you know, and what a big change. And Jeff, you too, certainly, there have been moments in your life that have certainly changed your attitude, not just toward racing, but toward everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's your life experiences are what, you know, get you to that point in your life where you can accept sort of who you are a little bit more, be more comfortable in your skin. And right now we're seeing Dale Earnhardt Jr. be very comfortable being Dale Earnhardt Jr. and a very competitive driver out there at in the Hendrick Motorsports stable.
Two things. Amy, his fiance,
absolutely
made a huge difference, brought him out of his shell. And then when he wins races, that gives him confidence that he's living up to the Earnhardt reputation. That's why he's so happy right now.
Everybody getting ready for Rack is Open. They're turning them loose. Wednesday, round 2 of Sprint Cup practice on FS1 is presented by Chevrolet.
Mike, I watch these beautiful automobiles back out of the garage, shiny, brand new. I mean, like they're off the showroom floor. And then I think about what happened here on last Saturday night in the Unlimited. Looks like they've been running a demolition derby, every one of them, including the winner.
That is just a bad memory. Exhibition races, chaos.
Well, I can promise you, guys like here, Kevin Harvick, they're going to be a lot more methodical, not only throughout this practice, but in these dual races tomorrow. They really know that they're out there to learn everything they can, that they're going to have to do some risk versus reward, but they really have to keep this car in one piece.
Now look at the digital dash display on Harvick's car. He's showing a bar graph across the top, and right in the center is the tachometer, which is digital, not an analog readout like we've seen for most drivers.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see different drivers go for different types of displays, and I think they're going to continue to play with this and learn of which one suits their style better, which one stands out the most. We've seen some of them flat where these analog style gauges that are up there and they're flashing. That's I really liked being able to have a dash that flashed a light at me that told me, so I didn't actually have to look down at it. To me, a digital dash like that, you're going to have to look at it in more detail. And then here we go to Joey Logano. He's got a combination of both.
Yeah. And we're not positive because we don't have a screen grab of the actual display, and the driver can change it through several different pages. But that appears to be a bar graph for attack in the upper part of the gauge, and then round analog style gauges below.
Right, and then actually right here in the corner, you've actually got the lap time. Yep. And then over here on this side, I mean, they've got a lot on this page. If I had to guess, it's either some water pressure, maybe some oil pressure, maybe even some volts meters that could be over there. And then along the top, you can't really see it, but there's a bunch of gauges right there on the top, too. I mean, he had it filled up.
Now, going forward, and there is no specific timeline for this, it is possible that those gauge displays might be made available to television, over the internet, so you can enjoy your favorite driver's ride at home right on your laptop. But that's some ways away. Right now, this is the first week in which the digital dash, the glass panel, has been mandatory for these Sprint Cup teams.
I think one of the gauges that's critical on these cars down here particularly is that water pressure gauge. That is so, that thing, if you get the engine too hot, you start blowing water out like we saw Keselowski do Saturday night, you'll melt the engine down if you don't get out of the draft and get some air in into the radiator or get some water back in it.
No, I love this right here. I mean, we talk about Jimmy Johnson, Chad Knaus going out there and making single-car runs. He so badly wants to be by himself that as he came up on this 14-car draft that we see that's rolled off pit road, he just bails out of the gas as he gets to. I don't want to have any part of that. He'll probably roll around here slow, let that group get far out away from him, start back up, and they just want to get a reading on the clock. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for hundredths and tenths of a second, and just
trouble. Turn 2. One car around, sliding up hard in the wall. Ryan Newman and Michael Waltrip in the 83.
Stop.
Oh boy, our worst fears confirmed.
Right now, Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus look like geniuses, and that's exactly one of the reasons why they stay out of that. Usually we get a few laps under our belt, and these cars really get double foul before something like that happens. So curious to see what we've got here.
Several cars are involved.
Right at the beginning,
damage.
You've got the 31 car coming up on the 40, the 83. Somehow that 40 checks up.
Ooh, yeah. Michael got into the 83 there. Michael got into the back of Newman in the 31, but I'm not sure exactly what all took place there.
Yeah, I'd like to maybe go back a little further because the 40 of, Reed Sorensen.
Well, let's listen to Ryan Newman.
I hit the wall with the right front, not very hard, but I did hit it. It been up to move the hood. The 95 or somebody lost an oil line in front of everybody there.
Ah, okay.
I think somebody lost an oil line.
Yeah, so they saw something that was happening further ahead, and it looked like the 40 bailed out of the throttle, and it's just a domino effect from that point on. It's really hard when you're further back and you're right on somebody's rear bumper to see everybody slowing down. But it's obviously slowed down.
If anybody starts moving around, the 40 car looks like, the 40 starts up the hill.
I believe the 40 car's lifting because ahead of him, the 95 is spewing oil.
I think the 40, I think he may have gotten into oil because it looked like the car started going up the track and he tried to get out of the throttle a little bit. And Michael and Ryan Newman here were too close.
If we can get onto an on-board shot here, we might actually see some fluids on some of the windshields. That's usually the first sign that somebody's losing a lot of fluids.
There's damage to the back of Kyle Larson's car.
Yeah, he got bammed into.
You heard Ryan Newman say he did not hit the wall very hard. I think probably Michael Waltrip got the worst of that. All right, so we listened in on the 95.
I don't think it blew up. I think we left something loose here because the motor never changed tune. It just started blowing oil out of the cowl.
That is Ty Dillon.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. All these teams have responsibilities. Each person on the team has a responsibility. We don't know exactly if that's what happened, but it sounds to me like they think that's what happened. And we see this just about maybe every year, every other year. You get in, they warm up, they do a lot of different things, and obviously when you have an oil line come loose like that, it's going to cause a big mess.
Now watch the yellow car, the 95, the third car from your left.
Right there, you saw those smoke right there.
That's Ty
Dillon. See it smoking. And then you see the 40 car back here, a couple of cars back. It gets loose in the oil and heads up the track.
One thing I can tell you is Kurt Busch in the 41 car, he can't see anything right now. He's just being covered in oil.
That's blurred. He had blurred vision in that one.
Now,
see, watch this 40 car. He will start to, he just all of a sudden right about there, you see the car starting to go up. He's trying to get out of the throttle, and it's a chain reaction from there.
And one of the things I've learned over the years being here at Daytona on these types of racetracks with the amount of speed and momentum you're carrying, you got to be really careful to check up in a hurry when you have a big line of cars behind you.
Welcome back to Daytona. 5 cars involved in a crash in turn number 2, which began when Ty Dillon's yellow car, third from the left, number 95, started spewing oil. Kurt Busch right in his tire tracks, and Reed Sorensen checks up. Michael Waltrip gets back in the back of Ryan Newman, turns him around. Then David Gilliland, Ryan Larson, Chris Buescher, all involved. Here's Chris Neville.
Well, and Ty Dillon back in the garage here with his car. And Ty, you were just looking underneath the hood. Did you guys figure out what happened there?
Yeah, the oil cooler cracked right on the weld. And just a part malfunction. I really hate it for those guys behind us. It's just one of those weird situations. I hate that we tore up race cars, but I couldn't do anything to make it any different. We were just getting the pack going. So unfortunate for everybody involved, and hate it for our guys that we didn't really get to try anything with our race car, but really hate for those guys that got their race cars torn up. But just as simple as a cracked weld on an oil cooler, and hey, we didn't catch it early enough and went out there and ruined a couple cars. So it's unfortunate, but we'll be fine. You know, we have time to get everything fixed. Just hope the other guys do too.
Thanks, Ty. Matt?
And Ryan Newman Chevrolet, the windshield is covered in fluid. So were you trying to woe up, or basically you just got hit from behind?
Yeah, I guess milk works better with Cheerios than oil does, but you know, we just were in the wrong spot at the wrong time. Obviously something happened with the 95, and I saw the oil and I started checking up, but it's amazing how quick the oil spreads out as it sprays out, and it was like ice up there. But tried to keep it off the wall, and it was, even when I got back up on the racetrack, it was so slick. It just got up and bounced off the wall with the Caterpillar Chevrolet.
Most significant damage to the right front?
Right front, the tail section is mostly just body work, but the right front and I guess the front frame horn just a little bit bent in. So it looks entirely fixable. I don't know what route we'll go, but that was Luke's comment before we ever got it back into the garage. So we'll see.
Thank you, Ryan.
Here are the cars involved in the crash. Luke Lambert, his crew chief. If they repair this car, he retains his starting spot in Thursday night's race. If they go to a backup, the 31 would have to start at the tail end. Red flag for cleanup in turn number 2 in the back straightaway after a cracked oil cooler on Ty Dillon's car causes 5 cars to be involved in a crash there. Now let's ride with Kurt Busch in the number 41. He's at the tail end of this group. There he is, fourth in line. And there's the smoke. And all that oil is getting right on his race car, and it looks like he's just driving through it as mayhem happens behind him. How do you maintain your sense of humor when all this happens? Listen to Kurt.
And the car in front of me has got the drain plug loose. Wow. I was full lock left, and then I'm like, we're not going to be able to steer it, so I went back straight. We're good. No damage. I hate when I can predict the future, and I don't know what to do with it.
You got to love Kurt Busch's audio on the radio.
Bet. That's fantastic. Michael Waltrip checked and released at the care center. His car came in on the hook after getting into the back of Ryan Newman. The sun sets in Daytona. Cars are lined up, ready to go back out. Larry?
Yeah, I'm looking, in the 4 Joe Gibbs Toyota drivers as well as Martin Truex Jr. are lined up in a group that they want to go out. And one thing that we have seen here for years, Joe Gibbs Racing, those Toyotas, they've had good race cars, but they didn't have good speed for qualifying. I actually talked to Kyle Busch yesterday, and he said, you know, we came here in July of 2013. I sat on the pole. He said, we couldn't drive those things in a 10-acre field in the race. We all said, give us our race cars back. But he smiled. He said, this week, we've got good driving cars, and we have speed. Remember, all 4 of them qualified in the top 10 on Sunday.
All right, we'll find out in a bit here, Larry, when they turn them loose once cleanup is complete on the backstretch. Let's go downstairs for our Chevy Garage Report.
And Michael Waltrip was just released from the infield care center. Michael, good to see you're okay, but when you got out of your car, did you have a chance to take a look at it and see what kind of shape it's in?
Yeah, the front end's bent a bit. I know the guys have got an excellent set of tools, and I believe they can straighten it out. I hope so. I think our backup car is pretty much in a lot of pieces. It'd take a lot of Maxwell House coffee to get them through the night to fix that one up. So hopefully they can bend number 83A out, and we'll go again.
Now, what did you see?
I saw 95 or 59 smoke a little bit, and Ryan let off the gas, and I let off, and whoever was driving 35 must have not seen it. Like, Ryan let off, and I bumped him, and then they bumped me and he got bumped. It's just chain reaction. You're going so fast and it happens so quickly that I didn't have a chance not to bump into Ryan. Glad he didn't hit anything, and unfortunately I did. I had it cranked to the left trying to keep it off the outside wall, but that didn't happen. And well, we've got some damage, but hopefully the boys can get it tuned up. I think that we're going to have some fun in the Daytona 500, and I hope we can get that fun done in this particular car.
All right, thanks, Michael.
Okay, nice to see you.
Good to see you too.
Cars involved include Reed Sorensen, Michael, Ryan Newman, David Gilliland, Kyle Larson, Chris Buescher.
Life as a spokes box is great. People love me for saving them over $500 grand when they switched to Progressive. So I'm dabbling in new ventures. It was board game night with the Dalai Lama. Great guy, terrible player. Go paperless, don't stress, girl. I got the discounts that you need. Safe drive. It's a balancing act, but I gotta give the people what they want. More bucks.
Any words for the critics?
What can I say? Critty's gonna neg.
What?
Welcome back to Daytona. Track is open. Turn 2 is clear.
Watch this, Mike. Here goes the 20 of Kansas, the 11. Here go the Toyotas. Watch these other guys. They'll probably jump up there and go with them.
Matt?
Mike, they were actually going to pull out a little earlier in practice session, but they were waiting on teammate Carl Edwards. Dave Rogers wanted to make one more adjustment to that 19 machine. Now, I spoke with Denny Hamlin. He told me that basically they're not working on handling. All they're working on is sucking up and closing rates with his 4 Toyota compadres there. Remember, the 78 of Furniture Row, that's a Gibbs car and a TRD engine. So basically it's a similar package to what they have. So they're all going to work together in this session. One other note, Denny is the Lone Ranger in his duel. He doesn't have any JGR or Alliance teammate on Thursday.
Well, based on what we saw in the Unlimited tonight, I don't know if he needs them.
He'd get that right side pushed in a little bit and he can go somewhere.
Now, these guys were sitting on pit road. I don't think they really wanted to go by and pick up this whole group.
They did.
But they really wanted to be together, so they took off, and then everybody followed. They all want to see what those JGR Toyotas are all about.
Well, that is the question, isn't it? When we were down here a year ago, seemed like the Hendrick Chevrolets had things in control, and then before midseason, Toyota made some changes in their engine package, and suddenly they were right there, and they were winning a bunch of races. So here we come back to Daytona, the most important race of the year. Everybody wants to know
what
those cars have.
Think about these Toyotas. They're pretty fast.
Perhaps because of what Jimmy Johnson found.
Wow, tell them to throw the caution. There's still oil all through turn 2 up high. Oil everywhere. I almost went the fence.
Yikes.
Scary, scary moment. You know, as a driver, you think the track is clean, and all of a sudden you hit oil, and you're just out there by yourself making laps, and that's the last thing that you want to have happen is put the car in the fence and destroy it, just being out there in the single car run.
See, but the teams, Mike, they watch the same things we watch. They saw how dominant that 11 car was Saturday night.
Right.
That was it. We saw it in practice. He drove by people and took off and got the lead, just like he did Saturday night. Matt Kenseth, those guys are. Kyle Busch, those guys are all fast down here, and I want to see what they got. I want to see if I can hang with them or not.
So the track safety crew will take another look at turn number 2. Now, it appeared that most of the work that they did was down the back straightaway after cars started spinning.
Well, I was going to make a comment on that. Normally you see the trail of Speedy Dry start where it starts attaching itself to the oil, and we all saw that they were laying oil. The 95 was laying oil in the middle of 1 and 2, but we don't really see much Speedy Dry going down until late off of 2. So I'm just guessing that maybe they missed a big streak of it.
I think they're just too low on the track, because if you think about where those guys ended up, middle to upper, yeah, he was up higher up.
Track's pretty shiny. Here's another look. Third car in line from the left.
So that's in the middle of 1 and 2.
Right,
You're starting to get to the exit of turn 2.
You saw that oil coming out up high right here off of the, middle of 1 and 2 all the way off onto the back straightaway. And that oil is all going out to the right side.
And it's just a fine spray, even though to those cars when grip is so important. But all it takes is a little bit of oil to get underneath those tires to cause all that to happen. So I just think visually, and that's how these track workers do that. That's visual. They're looking for something shiny, something wet. And when it's sprayed out like that at 200 miles per hour, a lot of times it's very difficult to pick it up.
Now he's now just below the white line, and that's where Ty Dillon was running.
Exactly. I think just above.
But where's the oil going?
Yeah, it's going out the right side of the car. I think he just needs to get a little higher right here.
I'd like to see him go much further back. And I know a lot of drivers don't like it when they overdo it, but at this point, with as much oil as put down, I think they'd all be very happy to see a lot more speedy dry going down.
I'll take an overdo over an underdo any day.
Yes.
Now that asphalt is banked 31 degrees. That is not easy to walk on. That's about as steep as the roof of your house.
Remember how we used to check it back in the day? Elmo Langley? He would get out with a napkin or a white Kleenex or his handkerchief and lay it on the racetrack.
Track crews at work or under the red flag. Welcome back to Daytona. Speedy Dry going down in turn number 2 as you look at the fastest speeds of this practice session so far. And down in the garage, they are working to repair Ryan Newman's car after being involved in that crash when he was tapped from behind by Michael Waltrip after Ty Dillon had an oil cooler crack, an oil come out of his car onto the track ahead of this group of cars led by Reed Sorensen in the 40.
You can see the 40 car of Reed Sorensen. He sees it up ahead. Maybe he's sliding in it, like you said, DW. He starts to check up, and those other guys just can't get slowed down well enough to keep from running into one another, and then they start to spin not only by hitting one another, but in the oil.
Yeah, and the 40 car, he continued on. He got to it first. He's able to save the car, but then behind him was where all heck broke loose.
Well, they had opened the track for practice. Jimmy Johnson said, tell them throw the yellow because it's really slick here. And then track trucks went up there, didn't put anything down for a while. And Danica Patrick said,
well, if they're not going to put some down, I don't want to go out. I mean, there's a bunch of us that said clean turn two, and then it went yellow because it was slippery, and they're still not putting oil drives down, like they don't believe us.
They must have been listening to her audio because they finally put quite a bit of Speedy Dry down off of 2.
Yeah,
I'm still not sure they went far enough back, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
So there's still a little bit of risk there because we saw that that smoke coming out of the 95 of Ty Dillon further around the corner, earlier in the corner than even this.
let's take one more look at Ty Dillon in the 95 and see where that crack first started to put some oil down on the racetrack. Third car from the left.
Yeah, and what I like to do is start referencing maybe something on the wall up here that he's smoking there long before the Daytona sign. And to me, that's the middle of 1 and 2. Yeah. So I'd really like to see them step that Speedy Dry even further back earlier in the corner.
All that's coming out the right side. They're working the right area. They might need to back up just a little bit and put a little bit more down, but I think they're working the right area.
I think I'd choose to stay low for a little while.
Yeah.
Back to that shot where we saw them grinding on that 31. That always amazes me. These teams put so many hours into these race cars, time in the wind tunnel, so many details. They come and unfortunately get caught up in an accident, and here they are with a grinder, and they're going to do all this work here at the racetrack and basically work off of the templates and visually to get this car back to the shape that they feel like it needs to be in to go compete.
And the difference for Ryan Newman would be retaining his 7th starting spot in his duel or having to start 22nd in the back.
Well, I'm not saying that this happens all the time, but boy, we seem to be able to fix them better at the track than we could at the shop.
You know, guys, we did a pretty good job, I think, of explaining what happened with Martin Truex Jr. and that 78 car in qualifying line on Sunday, but we didn't really do, I think, a follow-up as far as Kevin Harvick and Brian Vickers. We set a track bar infraction. The track bar hooks to the left rear trailing arm on the left side. It hooks to the body on the right side. And NASCAR has a rule here in Talladega that there cannot be more than 3 inches of differential in the rake from the left to the right. The more you run that track bar down on the right side, it makes the car travel more. So they say you can't have more than 3 inches. They checked that before qualifying in the race. They checked that after qualifying in the race. And after qualifying, Kevin Harvick and Brian Vickers, they had more than 3 inches of split from the left side to the right side. This has happened a lot. It happened to Kevin Harvick 2 years ago in the dual race in post-race inspection, and it happened to a couple of drivers last year. They give you tolerances on the travel of the rear of the car, but not on the 3 inches of split of the track bar.
Larry, I'd love for you to even take it a step further. Explain to the fans listening and watching, why would they want more split? What advantages are there to having a little bit more split?
Yeah, well, NASCAR mandates how high it can be off the ground, like on the left rear. So you want it as low as possible on the right rear, because the more you put it down on the right rear, it's going to help that car to gain travel that gets that rear spoiler out of the air. So, and this is the one place, along with Talladega, we talked so much last year about the driver adjustable track bar. You cannot run it here or Talladega for that very reason.
Now, let's have a look at the clock, because 12.5 minutes remain in this session. Only 5 drivers have put up a time in this session. And that does not include any of those Gibbs Toyotas that waited until the second round of practice to go out.
Are you single?
I am.
Have you ever tried Match?
No, I have not.
Why not?
It's too serious.
Too serious?
I like being single, but I like the idea of finding someone.
95% of people on Match are right where you're talking about. They're open to a relationship with the right person. I'm gonna pull up some Match guys.
I'm looking for someone awesome who is happy single but open to a relationship. Oh my God. John B. and I.
Laura joined Match. When will you? Start for free today.
NASCAR way. Go to accelerationnation.com to get started today.
Track is open for practice. Half a dozen drivers are on the track, and now everybody is finding their friends to line up with and go.
Okay, Chase Elliott, pole sitter, rolling off. He's going to lead them off.
Looked like it was going to be a bunch of Hendrick cars here, but then 2 or 3 other cars. You see Brad Cassidy, the 2, he jumped in the middle of this crowd.
And a lot of these cars were sitting there waiting for some cars to go through all that speedy dry, sort of get it pulled up off the racetrack, make sure the oil is gone. I will say, I think I'd keep it a little bit low right now for the rest of this practice.
What just happened here? 1, 2, 3 red light?
Yeah, it seems that way.
Everybody,
all of a sudden it's a drag race.
If I'm going, you're going. Is there any order to this, or does it just kind of happen?
Well, it's about as much order as there is to what they're doing right now.
Right.
Just a little bit of chaos.
Yeah.
All right, Chris Neville.
Well, Mike, we saw the 31 team grinding on that car, trying to get that primary car ready for the race, but the 42 team, Kyle Larson's team, they have opted to pull their backup car out. This is the primary car that got into the wall when that oil hit the racetrack. We can see lots of right side damage on the car, and I just checked with the team, and they said they just think there's too much bodywork damage on this car, and you can see lots of damage to the rear of the car. So they've just pulled his backup car out, and that's what they're going to be focusing on the rest of the weekend.
So he will give up his 11th starting spot in his duel. We're told that Michael Waltrip, who would have started 13th in Duel 1, will also, or excuse me, 13th in Duel 2, will also go to a backup car and have to start in the back. And NASCAR has now added, because of the cleanup time, 5 minutes to this practice session.
Thank you, NASCAR, because I really like seeing these cars get in this draft. This is fantastic. I know they want to get more laps in these kind of conditions, and it's nice for us to be able to see what things that they're going to kind of try to learn out there for us.
Yeah, I think what Dale Jr. is trying to learn right now, just how steamy is that 24 car, because they're in the same duel together. And I'm sure Junior's sitting there saying, I got to size this kid up, see if I got anything for him or not.
And that's exactly what I would like to see here. I'd actually like to see Junior start backing up to some of the cars behind him and get a little bit of a push and show Chase just what he's going to be expecting, how cars are going to get runs on him and how to block it or how to anticipate, or just something to talk about. All these teams are going to have debriefs after this practice session tonight to just talk about all the things that they did during this practice session.
Now, as this group works its way around past the start-finish line, the group of Toyotas is headed off into turn number 3. Maybe they don't play well with others. They're in a small group among themselves. And rookie Brian Scott has taken that number 44 Chevrolet, catching up to the pack in the outside lane to the top of the speed chart.
And there goes Junior. He's going to try to get around Chase Elliott there, going down the back. Looks like he's going to make that pass. Now Chase follow him and size him up a little bit.
Yeah, this is all great lessons for rookie driver Chase Elliott to learn from. Now, of course, he may have wanted to get in behind traffic and sort of let Junior get that move. But right now, if I were him, I want to do the exact opposite. Now I want to work those cars behind me, see if I can't get that kind of momentum that Dale Jr. just showed him that's out there, and see if I can't make a move on Dale Jr. Because I promise you, you're going to have to pass Dale Earnhardt Jr. if you're going to win that duel or win the Daytona 500.
Yeah, one thing I noticed with Chase Elliott in the 24 and the 2-car Keselowski got alongside the 24, but he was able to clear him and draft back up to the back end of the 88 of Dale Jr. So that 24's got a little steam on the hood, that's for sure.
Here comes the 2-car. Ends up getting to the quarter pound. Now, see, I would have liked to see Chase really use his spotter and those mirrors to get down in front of that 2. That was a big push that 2 had. And these are the types of experiences that he's going to have to learn. But now he's still staying in the outside lane. He gets a little push from behind from the 14 of Brian Vickers.
I thought he got a little, he did a little side draft in there off the 2. That's something that he will be able to utilize, learn here how to use that to his advantage as well. So, man, he's up here where that oil was. I know that.
Yeah, it looks like the track's in pretty good shape now.
11 cars in that pack, and they're catching 1 out in front.
But Jeff, this is the right guys to be trying things with. You got Dale Jr. in the front. You got Keselowski beside you. These are veteran drivers that you can trust.
Oh, this is a great pack. This is the exact type of conditions that not just Chase Elliott, but all these drivers would like to. What kind of conditions you're going to be in the race.
Now, they caught and drove past Jimmy Johnson with a speed differential of some 7 miles per hour as Johnson fades from that group. Have a look at Brian Scott, top of the screen in the 44.
Boy, he's got his hands full. You see him fighting the wheel. And oh, so close.
So one of the things that he's dealing with in that position, we saw where he went to the top of the board because those cars are punching a big hole, so he's obviously drafting up to them and has less resistance on the car. But just like what that does to bring that car up to that speed, it also doesn't have the downforce on the car when he gets into the corner. So when he's coming off that corner, he's got to give a little bit of extra room to that outside wall to prevent just what we saw happen.
Let's check with Chris.
Well, Mike, Danica Patrick opting to sit out the rest of this practice. And Danica, I spoke with your crew chief right before practice. He said he was happy with the speed you guys had in practice 1. However, he wanted to make the car a little bit more comfortable for you. Are you pretty happy with the 10 car?
Yeah, it's been pretty comfortable. We were working on something early on, but the second run out, the car was better. So it was just about how can we accomplish that in a different way? Does it make it a little bit better? Does anything feel nicer about it in the pack? So it's really not a huge deal that we didn't get back out there. It was, thank goodness we didn't get shuffled back any further in that first group that went out in second practice because unfortunately there are some crashed cars. But yeah, we got enough runs in. We felt like in the first practice that we didn't have to do anything risky, and they were having a hard time finding the oil on the track. So I feel like the Nature's Bakery car is pretty good, and we'll see what happens on Thursday night. But unfortunately, these guys work so hard on the cars to be perfect, and then you see cars that have a bunch of crash damage, and they manage to be able to win races and run really fast. So it ends up being about what you got coming behind you most of the time.
Thanks, Danica.
This is a great way to end this practice, assuming we don't have any issues. But you're gonna go back to the garage right now with some great feedback for your crew chief. and running with these fast cars, whether you're Chase Elliott or whether you're Brad Keselowski, you're learning a lot right now that will apply to tomorrow night's race.
Let's show you the pass that Elliott made on Keselowski.
Yeah, so Chase did a great job here of using the car behind him.
He's slowing him down right here. He cleared him.
We're listening to the spotter clear him, but he did a great job of getting some momentum from the 14. Got up there, used the draft off the 2, got to the quarter panel, did a little side drafting, and on by. A single car pass. You don't see that too often.
You see those yellow stripes on Chase's bumper? Usually thing when you see that, you pull in the pits.
Now, as we watch this group, among the Toyotas, Kyle Busch has risen to 3rd on the speed chart. 4 minutes to go in tonight's practice for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, getting ready for the Can-Am Duel at Daytona tomorrow night on FS1. That will set the field for the Daytona 500 Sunday on Fox.
I love to watch these guys, Mike and Jeff. You know this. They fall back, and you think, well, they're not fast enough. But they're playing. They're trying to figure out, okay, if I fall back, I'm back to 3rd. How long would it take me to get back to 1st? They're kind of timing it out. How many laps would it take me to pass these guys and get back to the lead? And they do it at the very end of the race if they have to. They know they got 3 laps. They got to make their move.
And I always love these types of sessions when there's just maybe 8 to 10 cars in a pack, because you can do just that. You can really play around and use the brakes and back up to the car. You can get a run and make a pass, and there's no real risk in it if you have the right group of drivers and teams. And so I always left these practices pretty happy and excited about my race car. And you see some of these cars like Dale Earnhardt Jr. come to pit road, and we saw this with the Gibbs Toyotas, just all the little tweaks that they need to work on to get ready for those duels tomorrow night.
We heard him talk about suck up, and that's what you want to know. If I get back, how far back can I get and still get some good pull from the car in front of, get the draft to pull me by them and make the pass and possibly put myself in a winning position.
If I had to guess, I'd think now that all the cars pulled off, pretty good chance that Chase Elliott here is probably going to make another run to get one more practice run on the pit road.
He looks, got that look. He's down on that yellow line coming down here.
All right, he's coming ahead of you too. You're all good though.
That's spotter Eddie DeHunt.
Much smoother.
That was a real smooth entrance. What I saw about that.
When you get there.
What I noticed about that is he cut the corner.
10 away. 5, 3, 2, 1. Wheel straight. Got cars coming to your right side. Amarillo will be clear. Clear out.
That goes back to what we were talking about with a spotter counting you down into the pit stall. It's a great tool to use, but one of the things I was talking about is Chase Elliott really cut the corner off coming to pit road. It's just a little bit shorter distance, and you might be able to find a little bit of a gain there coming to pit road with some of the other cars. But also, you've got to do it in practice, because one section of the pit road entry is much smoother than another section. And if you start getting into some of the bumps, it's really easy to start locking up tires like we saw earlier with Brad Keselowski.
And remember, Chase has driven the 9 in the Xfinity Series. So not only is he looking for his pit stall, he's got to remember, I'm driving the 24 car. And it's a little easier when you're in that first pit box because you kind of got to know where you're going to go. But when you put 40 cars on pit lane, it gets mighty confusing sometimes.
And that's a really great point, because they actually, their pit sign is different than the pit sign that I always ran. I always ran something that usually had either a lit up 24, or we used to have the old DuPont Oval way back, and now he's got a big 24 out there, and that's definitely something he's going to get used to. We see Kyle Busch coming to pit road. The front brakes are glowing, and he's leaving pit road.
I think he's warming up his brakes.
Middle 3 and 4 behind you. Left.
Chase Elliott was asked on Media Day yesterday if, when he's in the car, does he feel a great weight driving the 24. He said, well, when I'm in the seat, I can't see the outside of the car. I'm just driving my car. You know,
fantastic. He's going to be a superstar.
Brian Scott wins practice in a Ford from Austin Dillon Chevrolet and Kyle Busch's Toyota. Coming up next, Fox College Hoops, Providence versus Xavier, right here on FS1.